On December 28, 1969, the Young Lords Organization took over the First Spanish Methodist Church in East Harlem and renamed it the People's Church. The occupation of the church was a surprise for most New Yorkers, since very few had heard about the Young Lords Organization. The Young Lords Organization was a Puerto Rican nationalist group that protested against the conditions that many Puerto Ricans faced in the mid-20th century, such as poverty, racism, police brutality, and horrible living conditions. The organization originated in Chicago, but by July 1969, a chapter of the organization had been founded in New York. Forming the organization's New York chapter proved to be particularly important in helping the Puerto Rican community, because in New York, many groups, such as the Sociedad del Viso Campus, had tried to improve the lives of Puerto Ricans living in the ghetto. The Young Lords Organization was the organization that united all of these small Puerto Rican groups whose main goal was to help the Puerto Ricans living in the ghetto or el barrio. One of the ways that the Young Lords believed that they could achieve their goal was by running a breakfast program. The breakfast program would provide free breakfast, as well as a health clinic and daycare center for the children of the predominantly Puerto Rican community in el barrio. This breakfast program was a perfect way to give back to the community, but the Young Lords quickly realized that they were about to confront a big problem. The Young Lords decided that the best place to hold this type of program would be at the First Spanish Methodist Church. The church was the best place where the program could take place because the church was located at the heart of el barrio. In addition to being in the heart of el barrio, the church was only used on Sundays and there wasn't any other space that they could afford. However, a problem arose when the minister of the church firmly opposed the idea of the breakfast program. The Young Lords tried to persuade and convince both the minister and the church's board by writing letters, attending services, and talking with the congregation about the benefits of the breakfast program. Yet the minister and the church's board refused to change their minds. The Young Lords then decided to speak at the church's testimonial Sunday, when congregation members were given the opportunity to speak. On December 7, 1969, Felipe Luciano, chairman of the Young Lords Organization in New York, intended to speak at the church. But before Felipe could even utter a few words, 25 policemen ran into the church and attacked the Lords and their supporters. The policemen had been going to church with the Young Lords for about 6 weeks prior to this incident. This incident resulted in 13 people being injured, many with broken arms and legs. For the following 2 Sundays, the Young Lords went back and interrupted church services. It wasn't until December 28, 1969, that the Young Lords were successful in taking over the church. The Young Lords took over the church for the next 11 days and did what they had always planned to do: run free clothing drives, breakfast programs, a liberation school, political educational classes, a daycare center, free health programs, and nightly entertainment such as movies, bands, or poetry. By the end of the occupation, more than 3,000 people benefited from these services. This occupation, as a member of the Puerto Rican community stated, marked the first time that people of El Barrio had taken over one of the institutions that had so long oppressed them. As a result, the Young Lords helped the Puerto Rican community attain a better standard of living, at least for some time. Another thing that resulted from this occupation, though, was that enrollment within the organization dramatically increased. And as Chacha Jimenez, one of the founders of the Young Lords, stated, the organization became a legitimate threat to the enemy's balance of power. The police started to see the organization as a legitimate threat because the Young Lords organization was influencing more people. The Young Lords were beginning to be considered a socialist and revolutionary group that could create change. Ultimately, the Young Lords organization was an organization that deeply affected the Puerto Rican community. They were the ones who first noticed that action was inevitable because too many Puerto Ricans were suffering from racism and discrimination, particularly police discrimination. It was only a matter of time before Puerto Ricans reacted to these conditions, and the Young Lords provided that answer for help. They initiated offensives such as the People's Church Offensive and in doing so, the Young Lords emerged as one of the many organizations that helped advance communities of color during the mid-20th century. As a result, the Young Lords were critical in the Puerto Rican community's history, particularly in New York.